Welcome to a special episode as we kick off a brand new segment called From the Field with Mike Z. Mike's always been connected with the field and passionate about finding technology that doesn't just sound cool, but actually solves real problems on the job site. Today we're talking with Josh Lambert of Morrison Construction about how important it is for people and companies to embrace and leverage change all the time, not just when it's convenient. It was a great conversation and a solid start to our From the Field series.
And we're live, and it's a special episode from the field with Mike Z. This is episode 87, if you're following along. He's got Josh Lambert with us today. We're excited for this new segment. Mikey Z is going to be bringing us some of the people that have put up with him for the years and are willing to come on and trash him. So Josh was the first one to want to come in and trash him. So get ready because the dorks are going to gang up on Mikey Z with Josh's help. Mike Z, how you doing, brother?
Well, I didn't know that that was what this episode was going to be about, so I'm not feeling too good right now. But no, I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for kicking us off, and I'm really excited about this segment. And we have oftentimes on this episode in this podcast, we have people from the tech world, people from our universe, the people that we speak with on a daily basis about the things that we love, and we're preaching to the choir most of the time. So we felt it'd be great to let's get some people from the field that have been there and done it for quite a while, who are the best of the best. And in my opinion, and I think others would really agree with me, Josh Lambert is one of those people. I've had the pleasure of working alongside Josh as we're both 597 pipe fitters out of Chicago. And again, Josh is just a really amazing person. So, Josh, thanks for being here. I'd love, Josh, if you can, just to take a few minutes and introduce yourself and kind of your background and from the pipe fitters into Morrison and kind of what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for introduction, Mike. So my name's Josh Lambert, and like Mike said, I'm a 597 pipe fitter by trade. He claims I'm a lot older than I really am. So and I'm not quite sure why he picked me first to bash him. I figured I would have been pretty much last because he might be in for it here. But anyways, I started my career back in 2000, and I know you guys focus a lot on the tech. So I think it's important that I bring that up because I've kind of come through all of the tech transitions throughout my career. You look back when we first started, we had pagers and Nextels. Some people don't even know what that is anymore. So I think this will be kind of interesting as we get going here. Anyways, I've worked for Morrison for 25 years now. I started out as a pipe fitter apprentice, went through an apprenticeship in Chicago, worked my way up to be a foreman, primarily within the piping of our company. General foreman, superintendent, general superintendent, director of construction. And what we do here at Morrison is, we're a heavy industrial contractor mainly. We don't do a lot of like school work or library work. I mean, we're in the steel mills because our location, we're right here in Hammond, Indiana, Gary, East Chicago, tons of steel mills, with the big guys up here. And now we've even branched out to down south. So currently, I would say 80% of our work is heavy industrial, blast furnace, boiler house work, water treatment plants within the steel mills, rolling lines, and casters, and anything to do with steel is kind of who we are right now.
Josh, this is a technology focused podcast, and we're going to get to that. But you've come up through the ranks. You were a pipe fitter apprentice. You were a journeyman in the field, and you've progressed up from leadership now to director or general manager of construction at Morrison. What does it take to be successful? What is it? What have you done? What's the special sauce? What's the magic behind going from an apprentice to getting to where you're at today? So a lot of people, as they start out, whether it's in the trades or this can even reflect in a corporate America or any technology role they may have, you've worked your way through and you've gotten to where you are today. What's the mindset you have that continues your drive to just get better and just keep doing more?
Yeah, so I'd say the number one thing is the acceptance of change. Okay, we see, or at least I do, I see time and time again, and you've probably heard people say this, when something's going to be done different or something new is out there, a lot of people resist that. And I always use the saying, if we're not inside that room, we're looking inside the window at what's going on in that room. So I would say, you gotta accept what's coming at you and use everything to your advantage. Don't just say, I don't want to do that. Very open-minded is what you need to be.
So I mean, listen, we wish everybody had that mindset. We wish everybody was open-minded. And Josh, no doubt you've dealt with people that are not as open-minded as you. So when it comes to change and implementing new technology or new product, and when we say technology, Josh, that doesn't even have to be laser scanners and CAD and Trimbles and all these things. You guys have a 5-axis plasma cutter. You have an automated welder in your fab shop. When you have the guys around you and girls that have been doing this forever, and you see a new piece of innovation that you want to bring in, what do those conversations look like when they're pushing against it? They're saying, Josh, we don't want this. We've been doing it this way for 100 years. We don't need this, new tech or new innovation. Let's just do it the way we've always done it. How do you have those conversations with people, Josh, that are older than you, that have been doing it longer than you? What does that look like when you're trying to, because I know you're not the kind of guy, Josh, where you just tell somebody, hey, either you do it or you're out. You have that, you have a good way of speaking to people about it. So what goes through your mind when you're talking to somebody about, hey, we need to adapt or die. We need to, implement this new change. What do those conversations look like?
Yeah, so that exact scenario happened with the 5X or the Vernon when we first bought it. We did get some pushback. I was a younger guy at the time, and I was in on the conversations of selecting that piece of equipment. And there was multiple people that came to me personally and said, you're taking work away from, our workers. And, initially I wasn't ready for that because I wasn't even thinking about that. In my mind, I'm looking at ways to make us more competitive, ways to keep us in the game. So the conversation went something like this. You can think that we're taking work away, but we're actually making ourselves more competitive. Okay, by doing that, we're actually going to increase our workload. So we're probably going to need more people. And when you say that to them, they look at you and they don't really know what to say. And I'll tell you what, within, a year passed, when they actually saw, what we were doing as a company, those comments go away. So I would say if you're implementing new technology or things to make you more efficient, I think it's important for you to let your people know you're not looking to replace them, at least on the construction, and we still need people. In fact, there's a shortage of people.
Yeah.
So to stay competitive, we're looking for alternative ways and explain to them in as simple terms as you can what you're trying to do. And before long, they're on board. And, people want to come work for Morrison because we have the work. We're competitive. So that's how I would approach that conversation.
Hey, Josh, kind of piggybacking on that. I think there's the idea that technology kind of comes from the outside in or from a salesman down. Have you had any tech that's taken off at Morrison that's come from the field, really asking for functionality or asking for something to be done just a different way?
Yeah, I would say more in like our processes for like the way we're doing timesheets and our safety stuff. A lot of that has come from the field guys where they've streamlined this through technology, through different programs or software, or even us developing our own stuff. So yeah, I mean it's happening right here. Our like right now, we're really big into quantitative tracking on our projects. And you could only imagine what that looks like because no project's ever the same,
Yeah.
especially when you get into the piping. Lots of different systems. And so we're actually developing our own quantitative tracking mechanism within Morrison, and we're standardizing it, and we're running it through its courses and making changes, and within the hopes of having we'll call it in a year or two where we have this standardized tracking form that works specifically for the work we do, not some canned thing that was made for a guy that makes pencils. It doesn't really work for us. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on within the company right now.
I think it's really interesting that that's one of the areas you went to, because getting people to agree to sort of have their work measured in the field, I think is always tough, because if you go out there a day and I live in Erie, there's 2 foot of snow, I'm going to install slower when there's 2 foot of snow on the ground than when it's a sunny day. And like you said, the forms that come out of somebody who just moves paper around, they've not been out in the snow recently to realize it's kind of tough to install on those days. How has the reception been as you've tried to roll that out to people? Are they pointing out the exceptions, or are they kind of saying, oh yeah, make sure you get this covered?
So every person's different, as you can imagine, right?
Oh, yeah.
We have great, I'll call them supervisors and project managers here at Morrison. Great, but they're all different. So you're going to get different responses from each person. Initially, I would say a lot of guys are against it. They don't want someone to maybe know exactly where they're at. Maybe they're not good at telling you where they're at, and now you're going to know that that they're not good at that. And we're not looking to pinpoint issues with people or anything like that. We're looking at solely the health of the job, and we want to know the health of the job early on in the job. It's hard to fix a job that's going bad 80% through it. We want to know within the first 20% where this thing's going. Within 20% of collecting this data, we've got trends and things that are pointing, indicators telling us we have problems, we're okay, we don't have problems, whatever it might be. But I would say, we've been doing this about, 3 years on a consistent basis, 2 to 3 years. Initially, it was a little rough, but I would say now most people are embracing it. They think it's fun. They like doing it. It almost becomes like a competition, right?
Yeah.
So now if you have multiple general foremans and maybe 2 of them are doing similar things where they're looking at real-time data and kind of racing each other. And so there's some good things that come out of it in that aspect also. But as an executive level, ultimately we need to know where the cost and schedule of this thing's going early. Most of our clients are repeat customers, and we have great relationships with them. So what we've learned is if we're able to identify a problem early and go to them early, they're a lot more forgiving to us than wait until the very end and then telling them, hey, we're going to be a week late. I know we're supposed to be done tomorrow, and we need $5 million more.
Yeah.
Bad conversation.
So
the difference between a problem and a discussion is how long you wait to present the problem or the discussion.
And Mark Winters, which is the president of Morrison right now, he has really, really pushed that aspect here. And the results we've gotten have been great. And we're only going to get better at it, in my opinion. And, we need to maintain our customers. Like I said, 75% of our business is repeat customers. We can't afford to lose them.
No, and I'm going to jump in, Mike, because Josh, you're talking about a couple of really fundamental. First of all, I like that you say it took 2 to 3 years. Too many times, especially because we come from the techie side and we hear a lot of the sales pitches. It's like, fix your problem today. Like, that's just not how it goes. You can make your decision to fix the problem today that's by like just admitting you have the problem or the need. Like I think it's pretty interesting because probably over time, like you laid into the competition factor. I did not know that until I got into this industry, just how competitive those senior superintendents, even PMs are about their projects, about their crews, about how good they can get things done. So if one of them's doing something to beat the other, it's one thing for me to be like, oh, it's easy to do it. It was much easier for me to be like, hey, Juan, why don't you show them how you do it? And they were like, well, if he can do it, I can do
Yeah.
it. And then I can do it better.
Yeah. It becomes contagious
Yeah.
in a good
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah, in a great way because I mean, these guys would help each other out in a second, right? They drop everything to help each other, but they're gonna rib each other at their biweekly meeting or when we're getting the PMs together for the PM meeting. They're gonna rib each other. Like, hey, we're kicking your butt over here from this job. Oh yeah, you'd be better off if you could do it like me. But that's just for fun and to keep them going. And dude, this job should be fun, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we laugh, but like it's really hard work. We're never going to get away from that. So we should be able to enjoy it, joke with each other, compete with each other a little bit. But also, I think what's interesting is hearing your president has bought into it. Um, I imagine it's probably communicated that, like, listen, your job could go bad. All jobs have an opportunity to go bad that's beyond our control. But the sooner and the faster we know about it, the more we can help you with it and the better off the company is going to be. Like the sooner we know our tracking, the sooner we all get paid. Look, if Morrison doesn't get paid, and let's be honest, like at your level of trade with how much you guys perform, you're financing most of this job through what you're laying out in piping ahead of time, in materials, in labor. So it that's got to be of help. So if that's being communicated, it's really you're kind of getting all levels to come together. So I'm interested if like that's been part of the leadership conversation, part of how you guys are just approaching it.
It is. We have meetings every 6 weeks, but there's a select group of us. We have committees that we've created to work on different things within the company, and yeah. So, like I said, when we come out of our committee meeting and we talk about the changes we make, we'll test them, and then eventually we get to the point where it becomes a standard procedure within the company. Is kind of how we're approaching our to-do list, we call it, our improvement list.
Continuous improvement. Yeah.
Continuous improvement. I mean, things change every day. And if you're not doing it, somebody else is. So, and that comes back to the competition thing too. I mean, we want to be the first ones to have this perfect tracking thing. And I did, before we come on, you guys were talking about the pie in the sky thing, and that intrigues me a little bit, especially with where we've gone with our tracking. And, a lot of times I'll look at the basic, and then I'll end up with this outer space idea, right? So the two spectrums there. Usually we end up somewhere in the middle, but I like dreaming about it of what could possibly be done. So maybe sometime, a different time, we'll talk about the pie in the sky stuff.
I did have a question for you, real quick on. So you've been able to get that to start. You've been able to do it for 3 years. You've been able to get people to buy into it. And so much of the technology that's out there about tracking has some level of like surveillance that goes with it. It sounds like you're doing something very voluntary where they're writing in or filling out or updating things. But there's others, like you said, on the pie and sky side that are using computer vision to sort of watch people work. What do you think the attitude is as people try to do that, sort of that next step from on step one, we were sort of writing everything down, but we'd like to just record it and then automatically look at it. Do you feel there's some steps we need in between those, or do you think that people would be open to that?
I do. Now, I don't know 100% what you mean by video recording. I'll just give you an example of when 15 years at Morrison, we just wanted to set up some time lapse cameras, and there was people that had issues with them within the workers. We're not
Yeah.
videoing you to scrutinize your work or anything like that. So there was some conversations that were needed. But
Yeah.
yet, we worked through the bugs. I think being open and transparent is a very important step with your workforce. Uh, that's where I would start, to at least tell them this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is how it works, and maybe, show them some examples of what it is. But I think eventually it's going to get there anyways. So, as the workforce today is going to look different than the workforce of tomorrow. It's just like our kids, like my kids grew up on iPads. When I was a kid, there was no iPad, right? So again, as our older workers go out and the newer workers come in, they're going to become accustomed to that anyways. And eventually it's going there. There's no way around it. So
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because like we were having this conversation last night. It was really funny. I was at a parent teacher conference or parent teacher association thing last night, and we were talking to a couple of parents, and some of them don't. Even the parents that are in that room don't remember a typewriter. Like we were talking about a typewriter and how it works, and they had no clue. And I was like, wow, okay. Even that short of a generational difference, there's all of these differences. But like, if you think about what our kids are going through, John, a lot of us travel now. If you sign up, I don't even show an ID anymore. I just go
No.
through, scans my face. It knows my boarding pass. It knows I'm on. Like we're getting to that point now. That I think goes beyond and into the area. Like our workers would be concerned about that, and I would be concerned about it in many respects as a worker. But it is going to come in. So I think in the computer vision one, John, if I can take you from there, it's like I don't know what you guys are doing. And I'm guessing with welding, there's like QA, QC, there's process around what you have to look at. And that is just another person and more time. And computer vision is going to get to the point where it can be laser focused on those things. It can do a lot of that QA, QC. It's not going to, it's like, it's going to give you a lot of a lot of them are going to pass. It's always going to know when it passes. But when it fails, it's going to be, hey, somebody has to go look at, did it really fail? Right. And so it's going to help us speed it up. So I see those kinds of things that next gen really seeing it, but you're going to have to be willing to open up the model that you're using and the product that you're using and show them like, look, it's blacking all of you out.
yeah.
I saw one recently that was actually just looking for people coming in and out of job sites and to make sure certain areas where people weren't there. Like those are the CAS zones, right? You can't be in there. And it shows that you don't see the person, but you see that it is a person,
Right.
and it instantly alerts because somebody could be in jeopardy and real danger. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us, but I like that you say, make it transparent.
Yeah.
You got to make it transparent. And if you're not willing to make it transparent, let's be honest, you're probably hiding something. Not I mean that to other people, not you, but
You think about it this way as a contractor, right? We're a contractor. Our people, that's what makes it our business work. So we do everything we can every day to keep these people safe, to keep them employed, to help them along. By not helping them along, all it does is hurt us, So to make them understand that relationship with, the contractor, us, the people working for us, and then to take it to the next level when it gets to, this type of technology, again, be transparent with them. We're here to help you. We're here to make this better. We're here to get more work. We're here to keep you working. And by doing these things, that'll happen. If we don't do it, again, we're on the outside looking in because somebody else is doing it. So that's the important thing you need to remember.
Josh, I've had the honor of working alongside you for a handful of years, and everything you're saying is great. Morrison, I know because I've worked there, is a people centric organization that truly cares about the employees first. There is an absolutely open mind when it comes to technology and implementing it. And earlier you mentioned that listen, at the end of the day, construction projects are all about staying ahead of schedule and under budget, and you have to be able to forecast things going wrong early, and fail fast, and get those things out of the way. And it might just come down to experience of you doing this for the last 25 years, Josh. But when you walk onto a project, and listen, I know before, whenever a project's going on, you're fully invested in the project. You know all the details, the specs, the scope, what it takes. But what are clear signs to you that those that are listening or watching this podcast as they're growing in their career, what are things that stick out to you that tell you, hey, we might be derailing a little bit here, our momentum might be at jeopardy here, there's something? Are there telltale signs for you that when a project is going on, that hey, there's not a problem right now, but I can see that the way this is going, we're going to have an issue, we need to cut this off here? And maybe every project is different, so there's no right answer to that, but I'm just curious about that, because you have an uncanny ability to see those things before they happen.
Personally, Mike, a lot of it is, again, I've done it for a long time. I've been around a lot of great people that have taught me as I was coming up. But I will say this: when I first walk onto a job site, the first thing I look at is organization of the material, their tools, their office trailers. That right there will tell you a lot, right? If you go out there and it looks like you got dumped out of a dump truck into right there, we're always looking for efficiency. And by efficiency, a lot of that's derived from organization, by planning, by, this step comes before this step, before this step, before this step. That's one of the biggest things I look at, is how organized the job is to start with. Beyond that, it's, I am able to look at jobs, especially if I know the details and know about how long it should take to do something. And I know they're working on it, and I know it should take 2 days, and we're 7 days in, and we have 1 day's worth of work in my mind completed. That's a giant red flag, right? We never let it get that far.
Right.
And it's you got to look at so many different aspects, and it's very hard to know when something's really getting derailed unless it's a complete disaster, right?
Yep.
But you got to keep looking at all the little pieces and understand what you're looking at, and then at the end of the day, you should be able to have a pretty good gut feeling where it's going.
And an example that I look at is when we were working together was, and I'll just keep it very high level, just because it was a very large project, but it was a blast furnace reline that was supposed to be done inside of 30 days. It was a complete reline of a blast furnace. I think we replaced 23,000 feet of piping on that project. I know on that project, we laser scanned and modeled all of the piping and using Autodesk products, and then prefabricated all of it. That job, and I think the job I'm talking about, is a 30-day job. I know that even going one shift past is a significant loss of money for Morrison, right? You have to be in jobs like that. You absolutely have to be in budget, and that's kind of the question I had: is when you're starting this 30-day project, that if we are 1 day past, one 12-hour shift past, we're risking all of the profit on that project. So is it do you have goals saying, project schedule, day 1, this needs to be done, this is where we need to be by day 5, by day 9, by day 12? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah. So in that instance, you always have a critical path of a job, and like a blast furnace job, there's always a critical path. And piping, we try to never ever have that end up on critical path. You should be able to figure it out and get it done. The critical path runs through the furnace proper, the lining of the furnace, the brick, the big pieces. You did bring that job up, and it was a 45-day job, and it was 26,000 feet of pipe. small bore pipe, 1.5 inch, 2 inch pipe, but it's still a lot. And I'm not saying 26,000 feet of straight pipe either. You go 3 feet and there's a 90. You go 3 feet, there's a 90. There's a lot of connections. So we understood early that the piping was at great risk of going past the 45 days. So we focus in on that, get our critical path through the furnace proper as tight as we can get it. And now we go to work on this piping, and we may only have to figure out 25% of it to pull it back in, right, to get it off critical path, which would be, I'll call it the old school way of doing it. Straight lengths of pipe, crates of fittings, tons of people everywhere, pipe machines and welding machines and not enough power, and it just becomes a mess. So we do own a Faro scanner. We do have full-time people that model. So we opted to scan the existing furnace platforms, and put in all this pipe. So there were some significant changes too. So they changed from giant copper cooling members to a smaller member, and there was way more circuits than what they had originally. So it wasn't in kind type stuff. So we opted to scan, did all the modeling, all the routing, and it took a lot of effort and time to get that right. And then we opted to fabricate 100% of that job. And we reviewed it and reviewed it and reviewed it, cut all the drawings. The guys fabricated 100%. We had everything in perfect order, palletized, numbered. We knew where it was going before it even got there. And we put in 26,000 feet of pipe in 17 days is what we ended up doing. No way could you have done that with guys out there field measuring and field routing, and not to mention we had no injuries because of that. We didn't have the stack galleries just piled with people, loose material sitting on landings that could get kicked off and land on something. All that goes away because you don't have near the people out there. And not to mention, we fabricated it all on a straight time schedule, 40 hours a week, compared to working 7/12s, 2 shifts. So there's a huge savings for the customer too. Even though we spent some money up front with the modeling, it paid off huge for us. And being in the industrial market, I mean, we're the only contractor in this area that even has that capability. So
yeah, I was going to piggyback on that, Josh. We did about the same thing down at United Biodiesel and at American Refining, where we were the first people to get reality capture. And you go from having to build in the field to having to build in the fab shop, or having the opportunity to build in the fab shop, where everything's a lot easier to track. And, all those stats that you were talking about getting from your field people to watch that job are pretty easy to do from in the fab shop. You had talked, you're clearly somebody that believes you should embrace change and kind of leverage it. And that seems to be like every story you tell. It's like, oh, I embraced the change and leveraged it, and we made tons of money. Are there some changes that have come through that have not been, have been things that you have to walk away from? And being somebody that is about change, because you seem to be that, what are some of the things that really indicate to you, we have to stop this tech piece, or we have to stop this solution piece and move on to something else? Have you had to go through that yet?
Yeah, when we started, getting into the tech stuff, we pick up on 1 or 2 things that are like home runs, right?
Yeah.
When we knocked it out of the park, and now we're hunting, we're looking, we'll listen to anybody that's going to talk about anything. And we have invested in a couple things that maybe, we get sold snake oil, I'll call it. And I'm not going to get into any specifics, but it has happened where, we've done or bought things that just didn't make sense for us at the end of the day. And eventually, we like to look at what we're doing and our company, we like to say it's run by a committee. It's not, one guy, pounding his fist on the table. There's a group of people that like to discuss, the goods and the bads and the uglies and all that. And eventually we come to some sort of decision or resolution. So there has been a couple of times where we've had to kind of push something away, even though we did invest in it. And so it has happened for sure.
Were there any warning signs that you can think of?
Yeah. Complications, right? Complicated things. But
Okay.
the best things are simple. When you get it to something that is just so complex that, the average person isn't going to be able to function with it, I would be looking for something else, or maybe not doing it at all. That's kind of what I see. You make something so complicated you can't actually use it.
Yeah. I wonder too, if you ever come across it. I mean, the snake oil, let's be honest, there's a lot of really good salespeople out there. And there is quite a bit of vaporware, or what I like to call it vaporware. It's the new modern snake oil. Was there any of those situations where was it that, or was it just, hey, look, we went after a problem, but we didn't find the solution?
I would say it's probably a combination of both, in my opinion, to be honest with you. We're always trying to make things easier, faster, better, safer. And sometimes you're looking at the wrong thing, maybe. So
I like that. I mean, you're aimed in the wrong direction a little bit, or you're hoping.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this and you were like, maybe it's a different show to pontificate a little bit, but I would really like to hear what Josh, you've come up, obviously we talked about this since the 2000s, and you've seen a number of different things come. I mean, from you were that contractor stick building that out in the field, doing all that piping with all those people, and you've, moved on to scanning, and you've moved on to fabrication, and you're moving. What are the things, and then now you've seen software, right? You've seen a ton of software come in, a ton of tooling come in. What, looking forward, are you excited for somebody to solve, to see continue or reach those heights you're talking about? Because, if we're not reaching, we're never going to get there. We may never get there, but we won't get anywhere if we don't try to get somewhere. So where do you see it?
Yeah. So my opinion right now, we're very good at estimating work. I think we've got a pretty good handle on that as a construction industry, not just Morrison. It seems like all companies that are in business for a period of time are capable of estimating, understanding, what it takes to do the job. And they can usually put a duration to the job, a cost, number of people, what equipment's going to be needed. All that stuff, I think, is pretty well streamlined in the construction industry from what I see. There's all kinds of different units you can get from MCA, and there's a lot of data there, and then it's just quantities, plug it in. So it goes back to the tracking thing and the material handling. That's where I think that the huge disconnect is in construction right now. We talked about organization. Now imagine a job that's, we'll just say $4 billion in construction in 2 years, and it's got a sea of steel parts and rebar and piping and equipment. I mean, somebody has to account for all that, not just order it. I mean, you can order it off a list, right? And on a list, it's small, but when it shows up, this piece weighs 210 tons and it's 80 foot long and 20 foot wide. I mean, you have to do something with it. So you better be prepared to unload it. But beyond that, it's all the small stuff. I was out in Ohio, a few years ago, and just to put things in perspective out there was over 1 million feet of piping on this project, 3.5 million feet of wire. Okay, so I don't know if you know what 1 million feet of pipe looks like laying on the ground.
No idea.
I can't imagine it. No.
I don't know that I do either, because I still don't think we found it all. So these mega projects that they're doing now, you guys see it in the paper all the time. I think right now there's 100 jobs in the United States of America valued at over $1 billion or more currently going on.
Mhm.
This is not small potato stuff. So the tracking, to me, all the way from the time you hit order to it's getting built by somebody, and it's getting shipped from wherever that is, or if you're building it on site, however that happens, keeping order all that is, that's a monumental task. And I've seen some really cool stuff that, some of these fabricators are doing with, we'll call it barcode systems, where they got barcodes on everything. That's a great idea. GPS tags, right? So not only is it a barcode, it's a GPS, because this is in recent history. We've got all these barcode tags and they scan them, and this guy takes it off a truck and it gives you a coordinates of where he scanned it. But what if someone comes and grabs that piece accidentally and takes it over there, and you're standing out here looking for this piece, like happened to us, and it's on site. We scanned it, but it's 3 miles away. We have no idea.
Yep.
So now you get 2 guys for 8 hours at $100 an hour looking for this thing. No, we didn't find it today. We'll look tomorrow. And then a week later, we still haven't found it. So we've been paying these guys all along. Now we're rebuilding it on site. So now we're paying for that. And that's one piece, right? So there's got to be a better way to streamline that aspect of it. And then from there, we get into the tracking. So, okay, we know it's on site. We know it went to the place where they're going to hoist it with the crane, but is it installed? How do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about GPS and we're talking about cameras that are recognizing these pieces, maybe back to a model, and then go one step further. You have a 3D model almost on every project like that today. When this piece gets fit into where it goes by maybe a coordinates or something, it shows up in your model and then fills in your spreadsheet. So it just keeps going on and on and on. I think that's where we're going to end up with things like that, from birth of that piece, to where it's actually installed, where it needs to be, and the bolts are tight and the welds are made, all done by some kind of technology, I'll say.
And I'll add, Mike, before you jump on it, and I'll add the last loop that I think we've been talking about a lot lately, and we call this field to finance. That model then triggers a pay app that says, "Pay me." It's installed, and it's already verified by all those systems. So it's not that your team says it's installed; it's that it is installed, it's verified, and then that automatic payment. Because to go back to the beginning, you're financing. So the less time that you're financing, the cheaper money is.
Sure.
The cheaper money is, the better the relationship with the owner, because you can charge them less. You can charge them the fair price, fair time, fair installation, because you're getting paid fairly at the right time, which, I'd love to see that loop. And I love that material tracking, man. That's
there's a lot of lost time and money in that whole scenario there. So if you're able to do better than the guy next to you, and you can do better, is your price cheaper going in? Are you getting more work? Is your company growing? Are you hiring more people? Doing more? It's the snowball effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, like you said, Josh, where those items cost you, it's hard to forecast that. It's hard to estimate that part of it. Of we're going to lose money on this, and I started laughing when you were saying all this, because I'm like, once the solution providers that have a product for this hear this, they're all coming after you. Just so you know, they're all going to be lining up outside the door. Josh, we got the thing that's going to change your life. So
I would love to talk to him. Actually, even
ready for that.
Jobs, Mike.
Yeah.
Again, I talk about the estimating. We're very good at it.
Yep.
But we don't account for bad welds.
Yep.
You can't estimate that. You can't estimate for the piece getting lost or put in the wrong spot and run over by a truck and have to, it's just endless. But if you had this perfect material handling system and plan for every project, it makes you better. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and it's like any other industry, right? This is where my outside industry stuff comes in. Like, but we tracked people like that through their ski passes because they were the commodity, right? We wanted to know where they were going, to make sure our restaurants were staffed, make sure we had the right people in the right places. Amazon does this with a lot of tagging as things pass through. You know, you really don't think somebody's actually scanning that stuff and going into Amazon and updating that your package is going to be here tomorrow or that FedEx is going to be here. That's all automated, right? This can all be done. The difference is those are very controlled environments with very controlled systems. So we have a variety of obstacles that are going to get in our way, which I think are cool challenges for us in the long run to solve. Like, it's really, really cool. And it can also then tell us, and we get this from restaurant business and we get this from others, there's always a layer of things are going to go bad, right? Shit happens, right? There's slippage in everything, in inventory and anything. But the problem is in construction, you don't know if it's, 1,000 feet of pipe or 100,000 feet of pipe that's going to get moved because the access was moved and the laydown yards changed and things are moved around on you. So if you could actually get to the point where, hey, we can estimate and we can say, okay, 5% slippage, whatever loss on every project due to bad welds, or because look, things happen.
Sure.
Now you're predictable though.
Yeah. You talk about the Amazons, and I can clearly visualize their little buildings on the side of I-65 that all look the same and operate the same. So construction, at least with us, we never do like the same project twice. So there's that repeatability thing is gone. It's not apples to apples. It's apples and I don't know. It's not even a fruit. It's a bowling ball, honestly. So that's where we struggle with getting systems in place to work for all applications. It might work perfect here, but we go over here and it just that's another big issue with trying to predict and create something that to fix all.
Yeah, two of your same customers, right? You were talking about this earlier, like steel, and then they have water treatment inside of it. Those might as well be two different companies, right? Like, because the wastewater treatment's completely different than doing steel.
Yeah.
So we don't do repeatable stuff. And that's also why tech founders and technologists that come into the industry need to like respect what it is you guys do.
Yeah.
That's why we need you, talking to geeks like us and letting me take Mike over and ask as many questions as I want.
Josh, as we come near the end of this, I have a question that is something that is talked about, my goodness, all the time in the tech side. Morrison has a BDC department. You guys have a technology department with people that are working with your tech items, and you have people in the field. And we've always said there's a breakdown between the office and the field. There's a breakdown between tech and the field. It's something that, my goodness, but we often don't talk to the people like you about this issue. And the fact that we're even still having these conversations is wild to me. So, Josh, you guys have a technology department at Morrison. You guys have a large field of employees. What does that communication look like between the tech department and the field? Is it you that's communicating it? Is it the tech department? Is it the field going to them? How do you create this this team environment where everybody's kind of working together, and the information that your tech department creates, the drawings, the models, the scans, how they're getting that information to the field? What does that look like? Because everybody we keep saying there's a breakdown there, and it just blows my mind that this is still happening today.
Yeah. So we did, initially struggle with that a little bit, but I think we've, in the recent times here, we've come a long ways. So where we always struggled being a field guy is some guy sitting in a room somewhere designs this piping system, and he's going to figure out how to make spools and where to leave your welds and put this type of fitting here and that type of fitting there. And then maybe they buy all the pieces and then send them to the field. And the first thing the field guy does is he looks at this and he's like, well, why did they do this? It's going to take me twice as long. Why did they do, that's always been an issue. So, at the beginning, I told you guys, I would say 95% of the fabrication we do it for ourselves. So by doing that, we eliminate, we'll call it the guy in wherever doing it for us. So initially, we'll give our VDC department a scope of work. This is what we want to do. And they go to work. They go scan. They grab get P&IDs or whatever it is, or structural steel drawings. They start modeling. We assign a superintendent or a project manager to it. And from that point, you can remember, Mike, when we first started, a lot of it went through me directly. Like I was trying to look at everything. It just wasn't working. So now it's the guys that are going to go do this job working with our VDC department. Sitting in on the reviews, the model reviews, and even the drawings as they're being cut, they're approving them now. And these guys are building this thing in their head, knowing where to leave the welds. If they need to change connection types or connection points, or maybe they didn't like the length hose that was in there because, when they're out in the field, you can't actually get to the bolts because there's something there that you don't know about, but they knew about it. So having the guys actually installing the stuff that these guys are designing and going to have fabricated clears up 95% of your issues. And, our hit rate becomes a lot higher too, of pieces working and eliminating the rework by doing that. So that's how we're handling it here.
Well, I mean, that's the perfect answer, Josh. The fact that you guys are bringing in the leadership that's going to be running that project, and you're partnering them in the VDC department, you're spending that time, that labor, because that's money you're spending on labor for them to sit in that VDC office with your designers to review these things. You're spending that money up front to make sure that that vision is aligned from the VDC department to the field, and this is, your designers are busy designing. That's what they're really good at. They're good at designing. People in the field, your leadership, they're really good at knowing how to do this project the right way the first time. And when you put those two forces together, and I've seen it firsthand at Morrison, when leadership partners with the VDC department, great things happen. So, I mean, that was absolutely the great answer. I'm glad you said that. Guys, that's all. I mean, John, Jeff, anything you guys want to close with?
I had one follow-up question for you, Josh, and it's just because you have talked about your shop and you just talked about your VDC. I've seen two types of shops. I've seen types of shops that really are launched by people in the field, calling in, doing sheets, really pushing for fab from the field. And I've seen the VDC-led fabrication shops. Could you throw a percentage on what level of work is coming direct from your field to the fab shop and what level is coming out of the VDC shop? Like just an idea, because you have all that technology, whether it's the reality capture or the VDC. It sounds like you have some digital layout. You got the pipe cutting. How critical is having the VDC department to making that fab shop run?
So I'll just say we do two. I'm going to break it up into two groups of work. So I'll call it design build work or retrofit work, where maybe we're going to put a new system inside of an existing building, and the owner bought some equipment and had a process engineer create some
P&IDs,
and then they give you a pipe spec and say, hey, Morrison, you guys figure it all out. And I would say that's probably, it varies. 1 year it seemed like every job we did was just like that. So our fab shop was humming with that type of work. And then I'll say some of our other customers have engineers that create just fabrication packages only. So you're getting isometrics and spool sheets where we work off of those. Now, sometimes if we get isometrics, we'll have to create spool sheets, which our BDC would do. And then it maybe have to go back to the owner for approval of field well locations or however that might be. I would say that right now in our fab shop, those two scenarios are 85% of the work that's going through there. I'll say the other 15% is when we do a large amount of maintenance. So a lot of the stuff's emergencies for our crews out in these plants that are there day to day doing maintenance, and something may break or blow up and they need something quick, and they'll measure it, maybe field sketch it, send it to the fab shop, it gets put into their queue and, maybe shuffled around depending on how important it is. And I would say that's the other 15% of our work is coming from emergency stuff like that. But again, primarily for ourselves, not necessarily for any other contractors.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it right there. Josh, thank you so much for joining us and risking. We didn't beat up on Mike too much. I mean,
good. Let's just end it right there. That's great.
We'll get better. We'll get better at that. We'll continuously improve on beating him up maybe a little bit over time. But no, really appreciate you joining us and sitting down to talk about, what the reality of what's happening in the field and what the career of a pipe fitter that's now grown into this, management position and has leveraged technology over time can be like. I don't think there's enough people that talk about that career path and talk about the journey and are open enough to sit down with a bunch of dorks and get vulnerable and allow us to ask you questions. So we appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me here. It's things are changing quickly, and like I said, I would embrace everything that comes at you. Don't run away from it.
Yeah, embrace it. Change is it's optional, but so survival, as we always say. So it's the better choice, I think. And let people know. I mean, where can they reach out, catch up with you? Because I think we need more people like you to highlight that career path and that you can grow through this process.
I don't do a whole lot of social media stuff. I leave that up to my wife and kids. Occasionally, I'm involved in like the AIST stuff. You'll see me at events like that. The MCA stuff, the NIBERT stuff here and things of that nature. I'm involved in a lot of that stuff. Not a whole lot of social media for me though.
We leave that up to Mikey Z. He's, he's so much younger.
A lot younger than Josh, and we'll just end it on that. But Morrison does have, you guys are on LinkedIn, obviously, so people can reach out to Morrison's page on LinkedIn.
Our website here at the Morrison.com or our LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah.
Talk to me, you know how to get a hold of me.
If I had hair, it would be probably just as gray as Josh's, but I don't have any, so
that shiny head makes him look young, doesn't it? It's
well, what you guys don't know is I had dark brown hair and he had hair when I met him. Mine turned gray, so
hey, his is gone, yours is gray. That's why you wear the hat. We'll all catch up with it at some time.
You'd have to paint yours.
That'll be one of our next shows. So listen, thank you again for joining us. And thank you for tuning in to episode 87 from the field with Mike Z and Josh Lambert.